I want to slap you really hard right now, not to hurt, but to wake you from the cruelty you keep dressing as normal. That furious impulse to slap you is only the loudest part of a quieter heartbreak that hasn't learned how to leave politely. I want to slap you really hard right now. And then I want to sit beside you and ask how we got so far from kindness. My hands itch with anger, but what wants to strike more is the disappointment in your eyes when you realize I still care. I want to slap you really hard right now to erase the careless words you threw like knives and remind you I am not a target. That urge to slap you is a thunderclap inside me, announcing every small betrayal you disguised as indifference. I want to slap you really hard right now because sometimes pain is the only language people use to notice the damage they cause. My anger wants to do something loud, to slap you, while my sorrow quietly begs me to choose dignity over noise. I want to slap you really hard right now, then taste the bitter aftertaste of regret and wonder who taught me to respond with violence. There's a fierce part of me that wants to slap you, and a wiser part that knows silence will speak longer than a single strike. I want to slap you really hard right now, but the truth is, I'm furious at what I allowed you to do to my faith in us. The impulse to slap you is a mirror. It shows me how deeply I've been wounded and how close I am to becoming something I hate. I want to slap you really hard right now because your casual cruelty needs a reminder. I am human, not a punching bag for your excuses. My hand trembles with the thought of slapping you, and behind that trembling is a lifetime of tolerating small horrors for big promises. I want to slap you really hard right now, then run to the nearest quiet place and sob for the love we turned into a war. The desire to slap you is less about pain and more about announcing that I will no longer be ironed flat by your apathy. I want to slap you really hard right now, but I also want to understand how you learned to be so careless with another's heart. That urge to slap you is a loud confession. I am still alive, still angry, still shocked that you thought you could erase me. I want to slap you really hard right now because sometimes only a sudden, sharp shock will puncture the bubble of someone's selfishness. My anger begs to slap you, but my dignity refuses to lower itself to the level of your offenses. I want to slap you really hard right now and then tell you every truth I swallowed so you'd stop pretending you didn't know. There's a brutal clarity in the impulse to slap you. It tells me exactly how betrayed my boundaries feel. I want to slap you really hard right now, yet even as I imagine it, I taste the regret that would follow and hold my hand back. That wish to slap you is a compass pointing to every moment I compromised myself for the sake of peace. I want to slap you really hard right now, not because violence solves anything, but because my spirit demands to be seen. My hand wants to move before my mind can, and in that split second, I realize anger has been my loudest language for too long. I want to slap you really hard right now because your smiling indifference keeps rewriting the story of what I deserve. The thought of slapping you is an ugly honesty. I am done pretending your words didn't bruise me. I want to slap you really hard right now, but I am learning that walking away is the only blow that really changes things. That anger that wants to slap you is a wounded animal, noisy, desperate, begging for a gentler, smarter outlet. I want to slap you really hard right now, then sit with the ashes of what we had and ask whether anything we built was real. My palm tingles with the imagined slap, and underneath it all is a softer ache, the loss of who we used to be. I want to slap you really hard right now because every time you gaslight me, I lose a little more of my sense of truth. The impulse to slap you is a loud exclamation point at the end of a sentence you refused to finish with honesty. I want to slap you really hard right now, but I also want to hold the person you used to be and ask where they went. That desire to strike comes from living through your tiny cruelties that add up to a different kind of violence. I want to slap you really hard right now because I'm tired of swallowing storms to keep our fragile calm intact. My hand wants to strike, my heart wants healing, and in that split, I understand what I truly need is distance, not drama. I want to slap you really hard right now, then explain slowly all the ways your small betrayals have become unbearable. The thought of slapping you is a signpost. I have reached the limit of my patience and the beginning of my own rebellion. I want to slap you really hard right now, and yet I know the only real victory will be leaving without giving you the satisfaction. I want to slap you really hard right now because every excuse you hand me is a fresh bruise on a heart I trusted. That sudden wish to slap you is the sound of my dignity trying to find its voice after months of silence. I want to slap you really hard right now, but I also want to ask why you think my soul is optional when it serves you. My hand imagines the slap while my mind catalogs every tiny betrayal that led us here. I want to slap you really hard right now because your careless smiles have been polishing my patience into dust. That impulse to strike is a confession. I am exhausted from pretending your wrongs don't register. I want to slap you really hard right now, and yet beneath that violence is a tired plea for the respect I never received. The thought of slapping you is my final, unfiltered response to all the times you promised and didn't show up. I want to slap you really hard right now because your silence after my honesty feels like an intentional wound. That urge to slap you is a flare of the self I protected too long. It wants to remind you I am still here. I want to slap you really hard right now, then stand back and watch the illusion you built around us finally crack. My anger imagines a slap because words have been ignored and pain might be the only translator left. I want to slap you really hard right now because I can no longer carry the weight of your indifference with a smile. That violent thought is a thunder that follows the lightning of truth, loud, sudden, impossible to ignore. I want to slap you really hard right now, but what I most want is for you to feel the depth of what you lost. My hand burns with imagined retribution, while my heart longs for the calm bravery to walk away. I want to slap you really hard right now, as if a crack could let the floodgates of all my withheld words finally open. The wish to hit is a raw indicator. My boundaries have been trampled and my patience exhausted. I want to slap you really hard right now, but I will not let my anger rewrite me into someone I won't recognize. That impulse to strike is the echo of every time you chose convenience over keeping your promises to me. I want to slap you really hard right now because I'm more tired of being the soft place your indifference falls on. My palm tingles with a fantasy of impact, and in that moment I see all the little cruelties stacked like winter firewood. I want to slap you really hard right now, only to discover the silence afterwards is heavier than any immediate pain. That angry urge reveals how much your behavior hollowed out the space where trust used to live. I want to slap you really hard right now, but I am also building the courage to leave before my actions become permanent stains. The thought of a slap is loud because the quiet attempts to fix us were deafened by your indifference. I want to slap you really hard right now, and then I want to explain every moment I swallowed that should have been spoken. That violent fantasy is a signal flare. You have misused my faith in you, and I hear the fracture in my own voice. I want to slap you really hard right now, not to humiliate, but to stop you from believing your behavior is harmless. My anger wants physical release, but my wisdom knows the real power is reclaiming peace without adding harm. I want to slap you really hard right now, and beneath that want is a grief for the gentler love I once offered you. That desire to strike is a raw meter of how often you turned my vulnerability into your advantage. I want to slap you really hard right now because your promises are like cracked glass, sharp, useless, and dangerous. My imagination serves the slap as a rehearsal for the confrontation I never learned to stage with words. I want to slap you really hard right now, but I would rather build a life where my hands are busy creating, not avenging. That flash of wanting to hit is the last loud chapter of patient forgiveness that could not be contained. I want to slap you really hard right now, then walk out the door and never let your apologies find me again. The urge to strike is loud because the little daily betrayals collected into an audible, impossible to ignore pile. I want to slap you really hard right now because my heart is tired of being the place where your selfishness lands. That imagined slap is a punctuation mark on years of overlooked needs and unmet promises. I want to slap you really hard right now, but in the calm after the thought, I choose to protect my future self from regret. That violent impulse is a last-ditch alarm in a body that has been rewired to tolerate too much. I want to slap you really hard right now because your small cruelties have become the weather I breathe every day. My hands clench at the thought, and I realize what they really want is the strength to say goodbye without theatrics.